This is the Power Break Podcast number 061, an interview with Howard Parker, certified church consultant and avid cyclist who cycles with a purpose. Hi, I'm your host, Bob Brubaker, inviting you to stay tuned as we seek to give you a little power in this break to help you succeed in the race of life. The Power Break Podcast is a twice-weekly show that provides a discussion of biblical principles applied to daily life and an interview show featuring stories of perseverance to help you keep pressing on. Today we're talking with Howard Parker. Now, Howard Parker is, he's a certified church consultant, but as he said, he'd rather be called an advocate for that. We'll talk more about that. He's also been in church administration for 25 years, and he's a cyclist. How long have you been cycling, Howard?
Well, for as long as I can remember, Bob. It's just one of those things I did as a kid and just gradually kept doing it. And then over the years, as bikes got more expensive, it turned into an expensive hobby. But I ride with a great group of guys. Basically, it's a Christian organization called Man Up and Go, and we'll talk about that too, Bob.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that, and also your trip to Iowa and riding across Iowa. We want to look forward to that. Well, we're glad that you're here, Howard. We're very thankful to hear your story because you have several stories of perseverance in here, and we want to talk more about your recent business adventure, taking off as a consultant or advocate, as you say. But let's talk about your cycling now. You said you started to cycle when you were a child, and then you've just continued over the years. How many miles do you think you've put on your bicycle over all of your years? Now, you said I
could probably go back on all my Excel spreadsheets and tell you an exact number
by next week. Now, this guy is a pure endurance athlete that keeps an Excel spreadsheet.
We're going to give a non-paid advertisement here for Strava, because I use Strava, and I know, Bob, you use Strava as well. So I think this year I'm right at like 4,000 miles so far this year. I had a goal of 5,000 miles this year. I don't think I'm going to make it. We talked about riding across Iowa. I had a quick injury there, and before the ride even started, on a wet, rainy day, I slipped on this bridge as a rider in front of me went down, and I tried to avoid running over him, so I slipped and fell, too, and hurt my left hip. Ooh. And so, I had 7 days and 470 miles of riding to go, and that was kind of fun with kind of a bum hip. But it was fine. Got through it. But that was an adventure.
Yeah. So you persevered through that.
I persevered through that. I had to take about 4 weeks off the bike just to let the hip heal, because it was bothering me when I was still riding after the Ragbri ride, and I took some time off. So I kind of put a damper on my miles that I wanted to ride this year. So,
okay, well, let's talk about the riding. Now, you no doubt have you've been over 25 years as an administrative work in churches. How does a person who is an officer in a church or on staff at a church find time to put in all the miles necessary?
I take Wednesday mornings off.
Well, I know that you must, and of course you ride probably on Saturday.
Yeah, I would ride on Wednesday mornings. I would go in late, and then I would ride on the weekends. And just in Florida with daylight savings time, it stays so late. So you could get in an hour and a half ride after work, depending on the day, or like you ride first thing in the morning. So, when you like to ride, for me, I call it mental floss, right? It's one of those things where I'm on the bike, and it's stress relief for me. God really speaks to me a lot on the bike, and I have some really good thoughts, I think, and it's good planning time, and it's amazing. You just have to find that area that you're good at. Just like God says, be still. No, I am God, right? So for me, even though I'm moving on a bike, it's kind of like I'm still.
Yeah, your mind.
If that makes sense. My mind is still.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, I like to use a little recorder with me when I'm
yes.
A little handheld recorder.
Yes.
That's a little stick recorder that I just punch up and put down my thoughts so that I can go back and get them. What kind of system do you use?
Just my memory, and I tell everybody I have a really good memory. It's just short, so I write everything down. So I do. I carry around a notebook all the time, and I write everything down. I've been known just to pull over on my bike and take out my iPhone and just record a message.
Sure.
So,
yeah, that's always effective. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the ride across Iowa. How many years have you done that now?
Done it 4 years in a row now. And I got started because I ride with a group of local guys in the Clearwater area that are part of the Man Up and Go ministry, which is a ministry that attempts, and they do a good job, to bring awareness to the orphan crisis in the world. And it started in Africa. and it's gone from Africa to now we've brought it into the United States. We've had some great success in Africa with an authentic masculinity program. And what happens in Africa, it's tough conditions over in Africa. Ethiopia, Uganda, primarily are the areas that we started because men that are involved in Man Up and Go have adopted children from this area. So they literally practice what they preach.
Wow.
And they have seen the need over there. And God stirs, as God does, stirs in hearts. And God stirred enough men for the same vision. And the Man Up and Go ministry was born. And it's not just with men. We have women involved, too. So I just want to clear that out. We've got some great godly women that participate in the ministry. And what we try to do is use biblical examples and the Bible as the playbook, so to speak, and to teach men and women over in Africa how to be godly men and godly women, and to understand that they are here for a purpose, they're here for a reason. And oftentimes what happens is that the men get married, they have a family, they cannot afford to support their family, there's a shame element that becomes involved, they leave their families, they leave the mom with a baby. The men, unfortunately, turn to alcohol. Alcohol is a huge problem over there. And then what happens to the woman with the baby, she has no visible means of support, so she, unfortunately, turns to prostitution.
Ooh.
And then prostitution exacerbates the AIDS crisis over there. So we go over there and hopefully are a big part in breaking that cycle over there. We teach men how to do business. We teach them business skills. We teach them how to have a business. We teach them what God says about their role as a father and a husband, and teach them very strong biblical principles from this authentic masculinity program. They get in cohorts and they make a pledge, if you will, a commitment, a covenant for a year to adhere to this authentic masculinity program. And we've seen great successes. We've seen men's lives change, be reunited with their families. Men have started businesses and have been successful. And women too. We teach women's skill set as well. So it's a great program. We're bringing it over here to the United States. Again, it's the authentic masculinity program. Jeff Ford's the CEO of Man Up and Go. And I'd urge everybody that's listening, if you really want to find out more information, go to Man Up and Go on the website.
Okay.
Go to manupandgo.org and check it out.
Okay.
I hope I can say that, Bob. So.
Well, of course. manupandgo.org. We'll include that in our show notes so that people can click on that link and go to that website and find out more about Man Up and Go. Now, is this, you belong to a local chapter of that, or is it?
It's the Tampa Bay chapter. It's a big chapter. Okay. Tampa Bay chapter. Yes.
Okay. Now, obviously it's much larger than Tampa Bay. It's right. All over the country,
and it's growing. I mean, we're really only about 5 years old now, so we're in our infancy. But it's seen some great blessings from God as we continue to grow. And we do need men. We need local churches to go, you know what? I'd like to be involved in that and support a local chapter. And a local chapter is really just a bunch of guys and gals that just care for the ministry and really want to help bring awareness to the orphan crisis.
Wow.
Right out of James 1:27.
Sure.
So it's a good cause.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. Thanks. Yeah.
All right. Now, let's connect the dots then. The local chapter here from Man Up and Go includes a number of cyclists.
A number of cyclists.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got
not everybody that's a cyclist, but
no, 17 men. Some of the men are from another Man Up and Go area, which is Springfield, Missouri. In that Missouri area, there's men up there that have a local chapter up there, if I can call it a chapter, a local group up there. And the reason why it started too is two of the guys are from Iowa that are involved in Man Up and Go. And so they were aware of RAGBRAI, which is an acronym for Registers Annual Great Bicycle Ride Across Iowa. It's the oldest, most well-organized, and I think the largest bicycle ride in the world. Started in 1974 by a couple of guys who just thought it was a crazy idea to do it. They did it, and it's grown since then. And RAGBRAI is usually an event that people go have a good time and, they party across Iowa. We don't. We preach Jesus and we bring awareness for Man Up and Go, and we talk to people. We evangelize as we go across. We've got our cycling kits that say Man Up and Go and scripture on it, and we're pretty much visible to everybody with our jerseys. And when you've got 15 or 20,000 other cyclists that are captive audience and people come up next to you on a bike and go, hey, what's that Man Up and Go thing? and you have your little elevator speech ready to talk to them, and you start talking to them, you can tell pretty quickly whether they're going to stay or go. And if they don't like what you're saying, they ride away. But we've had some great success ministering to a lot of people, helping a lot of people. We're trying to take it to the next level. We're trying to think of ways that we can do a better job of bringing that awareness.
Now, that must be tough to tell your elevator speech while you're doing 20 miles an hour.
We're not quite doing 20 miles an hour, but 17.
But you average, you said about
70 miles a day.
70 miles a day for 7 days.
Right.
Wow.
Right. It's fun.
Takes you from coast to coast in Iowa?
You start on the west side of Iowa. The tradition is you dip your rear tire in the Missouri River, you ride across, and you finish on the Mississippi River and you on the east side of the state. So you go from west to east, and then you dip your front tire in the Mississippi River, and 7 days later,
you've covered it.
And you've covered it. And it's a big deal. I'm seriously. I mean, I've seen people cry. I think I cried the first time I rode it because it's a big deal.
It is.
7 days and 470 or 50 miles, a big deal.
Now, I'm sure that while you've done that, you've experienced some challenges along the way.
Oh, sure. I mean, you've got weather challenges. You've got, the heat, the rain. You've got just physical challenges of riding a bike. It's a huge event. Logistically, we try to stay at churches and partner with the church, and we do service projects for the church. We've done everything from painting to moving furniture to, it goes on and on and on. We helped a lady 2 years ago in Marshalltown, Iowa, and they had the tornadoes like a week before we got there. Her house was devastated. So we rode 15 miles one way off course and spent almost 3 hours moving furniture, jumped back on our bikes, rode the 15 miles back onto the route, and then finished the route that day, which we rode 100 miles plus 3 hours of pretty tough labor moving furniture. So we manned up. We manned up that day. We really manned up that day.
Wow.
But, we serve an awesome God, and that's what it's all about.
He gave you an awesome strength for that awesome task there, that too. Well, that's encouraging, Howard. I love to hear those stories about incorporating cycling or incorporating some kind of endurance sport and also ministry. That's important.
Yeah, I think passion for cycling plus passion for God. It's that synergy there gives you even more motivation and gives you extra energy, and God just gives you that peace and that power, right? And it passes all understanding. And I mean, it's just amazing. An old friend of mine used to tell me, not old, but a longtime friend of mine told me years and years ago, you need to love on people, love on people, love on people. And then when they ask why are you doing what you do, then you've earned the right to talk to them about Jesus. His name is Barry Banther. He's a wonderful man. So Barry, if you're listening, that's a shout out to you, man.
Well, let's go back to the ride across Iowa. How many riders are there?
Totally on the ride. It depends on the route. It's a different route each year. It could be 15,000. It could be 20,000 riders. It's a sea of riders. I mean, it's from dawn to dusk. They do close most of the roads, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. I mean, I did not realize there were so many bikes in the world. Seriously.
Wow.
And it's like just a steady stream of cyclists.
Well, that takes perseverance to do that. Did you ever feel like quitting?
Not on that, no.
No?
No.
No, you've had a good experience riding anyway. So
I like to ride. Like I said, it's good mental floss for me. I like to ride. It's one of the things I can still do, thankfully. And I think the benefits are great. Like I said, it's mental floss for me, and it just helps me get through the day, and it's a joy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I commend you for the ride, and of course, as you said, you put on 5,000 miles a year.
Well, I'm trying this year. I'm going to be short, but you're a rider too. You're the triathlete. You're the man.
Well,
so I'm aspiring to you.
I think Strava keeps reminding me that I'm a little bit behind because I normally do 8,000 miles, and all my friends seem to be 10,000 mile riders, and I just don't have time for that.
I don't either. That's the problem. That's the challenge. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your work in churches as an administrative pastor.
Sure.
How does that look?
It looks like you have to wear a lot of hats, and you do. And I've been blessed to serve with 3 really wonderful churches. And I did not go to school to be an administrative pastor. It was really on-the-job training. I came out of the business world. I was telling Bob that I had worked in sales my whole life, and I owned a business, which I sold. And that's how I really got into the ministry, because I started volunteering for a church. I thought I could stay retired and play golf and ride my bike, but retirement is not biblical, and it's not something that I wanted to do. So I found very quickly I was bored. So I wanted to do something. So I started volunteering at the first church. They hired me as their first administrator ever, and then I was the executive pastor. And then from there, I served on another church, independent Christian church, for about 8 years. And then I served on a large staff, not a large staff, but a staff of a large Southern Baptist church in the Clearwater area for 13 years as their executive pastor and administrator. And really had the pleasure of serving with some great people. Did a little bit of everything on that staff. I was in charge of everything from first impressions at the time, guest services, everything that happened in the parking lot, Wednesday night dinners. I was in charge of all the budgeting, the capital budgets, the IT, security.
Oh my!
Let me see what else. The administrative assistants, all the church management software, the finances, the stewardship. It goes on and on. So
wow.
The capital projects in my career as executive pastor administrator, I've had the privilege of overseeing $30 million worth of capital projects, building and whatnot. So it's been pretty neat to see God's people understand a vision, invest in that vision. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it takes expansion. It takes buildings. And we've done church plants and revitalizations and supported other ministries, food banks and whatnot, and built buildings. And sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes it doesn't, but it's interesting position, to say the least.
Now, there was an old Puritan by the name of Thomas Brooks,
mm-hmm.
and in his memoirs, he writes about how he could see God's hand of providence in every little thing that had happened in life, including the fact that when he first wanted to go to college, he didn't have the money, and so he had to do some tutoring, and he ended up as they call it, a notary, which is kind of like the county offices, and he worked in the county offices, very detailed work that he used to support his educational habit, okay? And what happened was he just writes in his memoirs how he could see the hand of God preparing him, because eventually he worked as one of the pastors in his General Assembly. He was a Presbyterian in the General Assembly. He was the man in charge of making sure all the note-taking was done precisely. Well, that's exactly, as he looked back on the first job that he had, that's exactly where he was. And so I'm sure that as you look back on your time in church administration,
sure,
that you can see the God's hand of providence, even though you might have been taking on, it sounds like a number of roles, that God was really preparing you for this next step now as an advocate / consultant.
Sure. I mean, looking back, right? We say look in the rearview mirror, right? But I mean, I can turn around to 180 degrees and see where I came from, and God did have His hand in this the whole time. I mean, I'm a guy who, I love people, and I love spending time with people, but I'm just as happy sitting in front of my computer doing spreadsheets and analyzing financial data and doing scenarios. I can do both. And so coming out of the business world, I mean, that's what I did a lot of, and I did a lot of selling. But it's neat how God definitely prepares you. And sometimes at the time, you don't realize that. You don't see it.
Right. Now, you said, as we just had lunch together, you said that as you look back on your life, you did everything from changing diapers in nursery to...
I did. I mean, it's kind of like... I remember hearing a story that Rick Warren, pastor at Saddleback Church, told years ago about a man he used to see every week mopping floors and cleaning bathrooms. And he just thought, who is this guy? He's not on staff. He's not on our facility staff. This guy would be mopping floors and cleaning the bathrooms. And Rick said, well, one day I'm just going to go see who this guy is. And one day he went over and said, hey, I'm Rick Warren. I don't know you, but I want to thank you for doing what you're doing. You're a volunteer. Why do you do this? And the guy introduced himself, and it ended up the guy was like a CEO of one of the tech companies out there. And he goes, I'm doing this because I serve an awesome God, and I can't give God enough. I can't give him back enough. And so Rick tells the story much better than I'm telling it. But it was just the point of this guy, who was probably worth a fortune, would spend his free time cleaning the church. humbling himself and serving. And that's what we all need to do. And that's kind of what I looked at myself. I mean, that's what I was doing for years. I started as a volunteer in church, and I've volunteered many, many times in churches before I was on staff because I get it.
Because you do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Yes. And so what is the makeup, looking at your gifts and calling?
Yeah.
How does that look for you to go into this new role as a consultant or advocate?
My bent is, spiritual gifted wise, I have the gift of administration and the gift of helps and the gift of giving. So I think those three gifts just kind of line up exactly. Because I am doing some consulting where, I give away some stuff. I just gave Bob something. I gave him a document that we don't need to go into, but we're brothers in Christ, and we're here about the kingdom. And if I can help somebody, I want to help somebody. And my treasures are in heaven, right? And I know that. So I am at the point in my life where God has blessed me and my family, and my wife and I, we just want to help this ministry that we have that we call HP3C Group to help the local church, because I do believe the local church is the hope of the world. And we want to help the local church. We want to help them grow. And I say go from surviving to thriving. And I also say ministry success means everything. And it does. Mm. It does mean everything.
Let's talk about the name there, HP3C. Now, I know HP
is deep.
It's Howard Parker, right?
It's deep, Bob. It's so deep. It's HP is Howard Parker. The 3C is Certified Church Consultant. So I put those together, so it's that deep. And then the group is, because everybody I talk to, whether you know it or not, you people listening, you're in the group, okay? So that's the group. And I'm kidding, but I'm halfway serious, because you try to find a domain name that's not already taken, right? To get the website up and, to get emails and whatnot. And people have them left and right, and you just can't find one. And my problem is with HP, obviously there's a large company that's got the initials HP. So I was kind of at a disadvantage. So the HP3C group was available, so I jumped on that. And that's the end of the story.
That's it. Well, it also makes people say, well, what's that about?
Yeah, exactly.
And so you're able to tell them, too.
Yeah.
Kind of like the man up.
Well,
and go.
Since we're both cyclists, I'm gonna digress here a little bit and do a little bunny trail. HP3C it had that ring of the AGRL2 cycling team as well. Yeah. So that's kind of shout out to them too, because I kind of like that. So,
are you French?
No.
Do you like the French cyclists?
Sure. I'm half Italian, but I'm not French.
That's, by the way, one of the teams in the Tour de France. And one of these days, they may see one of their cyclists on the stage again.
That's
at
right.
the end of the Tour de France. Well, as you said, we digress. So let's just kind of recap a little bit more that you're working now as a consultant, or as you say, an advocate for churches and for pastors. How does that connect? You meet with pastors and
sure,
and
just
offer your services,
just like what we're doing. It can be very casual. Have lunch. I want to hear your hopes and your dreams and your cares and your concerns. What's God laid on your heart and the vision for churches. And unfortunately, today a lot of churches, the majority of churches, are either plateaued or they're declining, and that breaks my heart. And I want to help turn that around. And if I can help, and I want to help in any way, that's why I'm here. I want to help churches look at things maybe a little differently and go, well, I didn't realize we could consider doing that, or I didn't realize that would be successful. As we talked about, I don't have all the answers, but I can ask a lot of questions. And maybe through give and take, we can understand, in God's providence, we can understand, and the wisdom that's in the Bible, right, in the book. We can come up with a solution that would be a win-win and maybe help the church grow or turn a corner and go from surviving to thriving.
Okay. Now, you still working on a website, or you do have a website?
I have a website up. It's hp3cgroup.com.
Okay. Yeah. And so we'll include that in the show notes too. And that's we encourage churches to contact Howard and find out how they can benefit. But also, as we close out today's program, just a little bit. Again, you're cycling, and do you normally wear your Man Up and Go jerseys while you're cycling around the Clearwater area?
I do. Yeah, I try to. I've got like 6 of them now. They're all different colors because I've done it 4 years, and every year we have a couple jerseys, and they some of them are passed from year to year. But I do, and it brings some good visibility. And I've had people actually stop me and ask me, riding in the local area, what is that all about too? So,
Well, I wear my
always
one
have to
breath
be
from
prepared.
death jersey too. So
Yeah,
that's what we do, and try to spread the word about what we're doing. Is spread the word that we do serve an awesome God, and He does take care of His people, and we have the privilege of representing Him even out on the road.
Absolutely.
Well, Howard, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Thank you, Bob. It's been my pleasure.
It's
Appreciate
a delight
it.
to hear your story and the story of perseverance.
This has been the Power Break Podcast with another story of perseverance to encourage you to keep pressing on in the race of life. If you'd like more information about Howard Parker and his church consulting business, look up hp3cgroup.com. That's hp3cgroup.com. If you'd like information about Man Up and Go, their website is manupandgo.org. That's manupandgo.org. Both of these links will be in today's show notes, and today's show is podcast number 061. The Power Break Podcast is a twice-weekly program that provides a discussion with JT and myself on biblical principles to help you succeed in the race of life, and an interview show with stories of perseverance. Please subscribe wherever you have downloaded the podcast, and please leave us a rating and a review. Check out today's show notes, books, the Power Break blog, and more at my website, bobbrubaker.com, and listen next time for the Power Break Podcast.